and browse. Treading water that they drowning. My head on a swivel, yeah. It's only really my surroundings.
Hello and welcome to episode 248 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. We just brought you some absolute heat talking running backs. Now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about wide receivers that are going to have smash years. They're going to have career years based off of quarterback changes, based off of system changes, based off of all kinds of different things, because we know that when we look at the wide receiver position in PPR leagues, the target is worth 1.78 fantasy points, but catchable targets are worth 2.31. A lot easier to catch it when you're getting it thrown to you, Snoog.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing that we're talking about. We're talking about guys like Garrett Wilson who get the ball skyrocket at 140 times over his head, and like 20 of those passes are catchable. So we're going to dive into that. Diontae Johnson's another one of those guys. He had like 160 targets and 850 yards on 0 touchdowns one year. So these talented wide receivers, I don't care how talented you are, if the QB play is truly that bad, you're not going to do anything. But when there's like a Joe Flacco or like one of those bad QBs that will just gunsling the whole game regardless and take risks, those are the QBs you want. You don't want the Zach Wilsons that throw the ball 17 times a game and complete 10 of the passes.
Right. And I think Joe Flacco is just like, I mean, he really propelled Amari Cooper. Now he's obviously in Indianapolis. But yeah, you're talking about your Zach Wilsons, your Aiden O'Connells, your, Desmond Ridder. Those are the guys that are going to hold you back. These guys go to new situations. Talking about Zach Wilson, I mean, Garrett Wilson had his best season in 2023 with 95 receptions, 1,042 yards, and 3 touchdowns. None of those were the type of numbers that we would have anticipated if Aaron Rodgers were healthy. You and I were predicting the breakout really early. A lot of people look at it as a real downfall that he did not finish as a wide receiver 1. I'm just shocked that he finished as, wide receiver 17. How bad his quarterback play was. 3rd most targets in the league last year. 11th most catches all time in his first 2 seasons. Phenomenal start. Of those 2 seasons, okay, 2022 was actually worse than 2023. 2022, he had 56.5% catchable balls. That's the worst that we've seen, period. 73% last year catchable balls. Between the two of 2022 and 2023, Garrett Wilson has had the 5th lowest percent of catchable targets his way. That's gross. Now you got Aaron Rodgers, one of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time. Is this 2015 Aaron Rodgers or 2018 Aaron Rodgers or no, it's not. But it's Aaron Rodgers that can support Devontae Adams for 1,700 yards. It's Aaron Rodgers that I think Garrett Wilson approaches 100 catches, 1,500 yards, and 10 touchdowns. All are in that realm of possibilities with a healthy Aaron Rodgers. And I think they added to the offensive line a little bit. They're really trying to focus on giving Aaron Rodgers weapons, giving Aaron Rodgers more time. If Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers both stay healthy all season, he could be the wide receiver 1 overall.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. I think he's a dark horse wide receiver 1 overall finisher. Aaron Rodgers, there's one thing with him when he plays on the football field is he throws touchdown passes. And that's what Garrett Wilson has lacked the past 2 years. Expect a big upstick in touchdown efficiency if Rodgers plays at least 15 games. Even if he misses a couple, Garrett Wilson will finish as a wide receiver 1. He had 4 and 3 touchdowns. Like, that dude is going to score like 10 to 15 touchdowns if Aaron Rodgers plays a healthy season. Christian Watson, he made people think Christian Watson was a superstar 2 years ago.
Yeah, since
Garrett Wilson and Christian Watson aren't the same person. I can promise you that.
Since 2006, wide receivers have had 70-plus receptions, 1,000-plus yards in each of their first 2 seasons. Amari Cooper, Odell Beckham, Michael Thomas, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, and Garrett Wilson. With horrible quarterback play, right? You look at the other guys, and they all had Hall of Famers thrown to them. We got Garrett Wilson here getting thrown to by Zach Wilson. I think we see a spot. Garrett Wilson right now is my dynasty wide receiver. Let me see here. I think I have him right there, slated in that same area as Marvin Harrison Jr. I have it right now as Amon-Ra 4, Marvin 5, and I've just moved Garrett above Puka at 6. And I had Puka above Garrett for the longest time, but I just don't think we see the same type of volume. Puka's going to be great. I think you're splitting hairs between the two of them. But Garrett Wilson is a top 5 to 7 dynasty wide receiver. And a lot of people aren't treating him that way yet because they have that, oh, well, he didn't do it year 1 or year 2. What he did in year 1 and year 2 were amazing considering the quarterback play.
Yeah, exactly. And it comes down to the quarterback play. Like, Marvin Harrison Jr. has Kyler. Puka has Stafford. Garrett Wilson had Zach Wilson. Like, that's not... Puka Nacua wouldn't be Puka Nacua. You wouldn't even know who he was if he had Zach Wilson last year.
If Garrett Wilson had Matthew Stafford last year...
1,700 plus.
he like, either year, if he has Matthew Stafford, he would have broken those records. Not taking anything away from Puka. He was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. But I think...
He ain't Garrett Wilson, though.
If I could get Garrett Wilson plus for Puka, which I still think you can, I would absolutely do it because I think Garrett Wilson, after this year, it's going to be, there's Jefferson, Lamb, Chase, and then I think you have that next tier of Amon-Ra, Marvin, and Garrett, and I could see that all kind of blurring into a 1A, 1B, 2 different tiers or semi-tiers, not a lot of difference in value between any of those. What I got to ask you right now is we always talk about trying to make insulated trades, trying to assess that next guy. I was trading Justin Jefferson for CeeDee Lamb plus. I was trading, we've been making those trades for years where, right now, if I'm going off of CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, or Jamar Chase, what's the gap to Garrett Wilson for you?
First.
What first?
I think it's probably mid to late. Maybe probably mid.
6 to 7, I think.
Yeah. 5, 6, 7-ish.
So if you get that random first, and you and I love random first because most of those guys are the guys that think they're going to be in the playoffs, but they're not going to. They want that last push. So if I can go ahead and I can get Garrett Wilson in a random first for Jamar Chase, I think I would do it right now because I think that would give you another opportunity. So when you're all said and done, you get Quinshon Judkins and Garrett Wilson. Then next year you're getting 2 guys that are going to be, because right now Garrett Wilson is going mid-second round of startups. I think he moves up to early second or at least stays in that mid-second range, but you're going to get that first rounder that is truly mid, which by next year will be a 4th round grade. So you're going to get a 2nd and a 4th for a guy that's late first. And I'm for that 9 times out of 10. You can absolutely get that. If it flips out to be late, then I think you lose a little bit, but you don't lose a lot. So, Garrett Wilson is someone that I'm totally invested in. I've been buying shares. I even, overpaid a little bit. Speaking of which, no, we just got some YouTube. Jordan Davis says, hey, what's up, guys? Just found you guys. Love it. We are on YouTube. We do this show live. We make sure that we're trying to be as active as possible with both the Patreon, with YouTube, and with Twitter. So appreciate that when you guys reach out. Snoog, the trades that I want to make now is I want to tier up to Garrett Wilson. There's not a lot of opportunities to tier down. I'm going to go over a couple of trades here, and I want you to tell me, would you rather have Garrett Wilson or the package? Drake London and the 202 or Garrett Wilson?
Garrett Wilson.
Drake London and the 110 this year. Is that the line?
Yeah, I'd make the bet on Drake London there. I think they're both in similar situations, just like QB, long-term outlook type thing, but Garrett's just a better player. It's just...
Tyreek Hill and the 109.
Tyreek.
Yeah. What with that? It's the same kind of thing, like 110, 111.
I'm a sucker for getting elite production and then getting more like on top value. And then I could go from Tyreek to Adams or Evans and get another first. And it's like that. I'm always thinking about that next move, and we always talk about that on the show. Is I don't have to keep Tyreek Hill, and if I have to, then let's go. I get Tyreek Hill.
That's the difference between buying Chris Olave and Tyreek Hill, right? Because Chris Olave, you're going to get middling production. Tyreek Hill, you're going to get guaranteed, as long as he's healthy, a top 3 wide receiver. Guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like that's what you're going to get week in and week out. And then you take that other first, and now all of a sudden you're all in, and you either keep it for next year and get yourself a running back, or you say, you know what? I'm going to take that last push, and I'm going to buy Derrick Henry. I'm going to go all in. So, yeah, I got no problem there. How about the tier that I really want to talk about is Nico Collins, Jaden Waddle, Brandon Ayuk, and Devonta Smith. All of them 25, 26 years old. What would you add? Would you add a first on top of these guys to get to Garrett Wilson?
Depends what the first is, but probably
8 to 12. 8 to 12 for sure.
Later. I think it has to be 10, 11, 12.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
What about we get down to the next tier below that, where it's DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, DK Metcalf, George Pickens, T. Higgins. I'd give a mid first on top of any of these guys to get Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we really start to go is Tank Dell in a first, T. Higgins in a first, George Pickens, Metcalf, Pittman, DJ Moore are three of the guys where I'm like, they're
crazy
that
age. Pittman's in that tier.
he is though. I mean, like, I know you don't like him. I know he's a fade. I'm personally, but value is value. So if I can take him and I can flip him to get into another tier, I'm absolutely doing it. You know what I mean? And I think those were trades that I would make is any of those four guys, Moore, Pittman, Metcalf, Pickens, as much as I like them, I'll add a mid first and get myself up there. So yeah, we got a couple more. Happy Wednesday from Mile High Luke. Thanks for messaging in. And what about the rookies? Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, Lad McConkey. Let's say the 105 next year plus those guys. So let's call it a true mid, 105, 106, or those three guys to get to Garrett Wilson.
Do I get both the first?
What?
I said I'd need like 2 firsts on top of any of those guys.
You
to
think?
Consider that, yeah.
See, I'm trying to tier up.
Roma Dunze though would be the rookie, yeah, or like a Neighbors. I would take Neighbors and an early second, or Rome and a mid first for sure, or even a late first would be in that realm of possibility. But I do think if I could tier up from Ladd, Worthy, or Thomas with a random first, maybe even add in a second, I would do it to get to Garrett Wilson, because the three of those guys, could all three of them hit and be wide receiver 2s? I think Brian Thomas and Worthy have opportunities to be wide receiver 1s, but they also have some bust possibilities where I think with Garrett Wilson, we know what we've seen. We have not bought the ceiling yet. I'm all in if I can go ahead and buy myself some shares of him at cost right now. So buy him before it's too late. It's almost too late. We're past that area. But like I said, you look at what he was able to do in the past, 1.78 fantasy points per target, but 2.31 fantasy points per catchable target. He was 5th lowest in catchable targets. If that even goes up 50%, we have a guy that is going to be a locked and loaded top 8 dynasty wide receiver. The other one I'm not as bullish on is Drake London. So Drake London's best season is 72, 866, and 4. His catchable rate with Ritter is really bad. 68.4% in 2022, 67.9% in 2023. Now you get Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, second best in the entire NFL in catchable percentage, 5th highest in completion percentage, and 2nd best in attempts per touchdown. So now London's, elite skill set. Will he pass 1,000 yards this year? I think that's a lock. But does he enter that wide receiver 8 to 10 range in Dynasty? Yeah, I think so. This is like where I'm like,
I'm tearing off. I'm tearing up.
That's what I'm
London.
saying. That's what I'm saying.
Because we were buying him all off season. We were buying him, but now
I think he's priced like at his ceiling right now. Like
yeah.
Wide receiver 8, 9, 10-ish. Like that's why I have him in that 8, 9, 10-ish range. I think it's like if you have him, entertain tearing up. If not, hold. I think he's a guy that if Kirk Cousins is healthy, back to normal, plays a full 17 games, then you're gonna get that like Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins jump from Drake London where he puts up like 1,300. He's efficient, but I feel like that's still not even enough for him to gain like any value because everyone above him is gonna do the same exact shit. So it's like it's tough.
Everyone's talking, and this is gonna be really controversial for a lot of people. Everyone is just pretending that I know Kirk Cousins is the boat there, he rises all the ships, or however they say that terminology. He's the tide that rises all ships. And I think that's going to happen. I think Kirk Cousins is going to improve everybody else there. Even Michael Penix Jr. is a massive completion percentage upgrade from what we saw with Desmond Ridder. The offensive line is fantastic in Atlanta, so they're going to protect whoever that quarterback is. I think Bijan is a top 3-5 running back. I think Pitts gets into that top 5 to 7 or tight ends. And I think London gets into that wide receiver 1 back end conversation. But people act like Kirk Cousins is going to make Drake London the next Amon-Ra St. Brown, the next Jamar Chase. And that's not it. Like, I don't think that's where he is. I like him talent-wise better than Chris Olave, but I don't think he gets to where Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison, Amon-Ra St. Brown, because of we haven't seen it. We would have seen something, right? Like Garrett Wilson with trash quarterback play was 90, 95, 100, or 1,000 yards, and the touchdowns were low. Drake London with Heineke was playing and Ritter was there and the offense was better than what it was with the Jets, was 72-866. So there is a difference there. I think we have to take that into consideration. I did a poll a couple of months ago and, people preferred the 104, the 105. He was going for about the 106. And I feel like that's about right.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's market value in my opinion.
Do you think you could get Rome Odunze in a second for him if you're rebuilding? I think there's a little bit of hype there where I think we can cash out a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd take that.
I think I'd take Rome too because
I think Rome, dude. I think Rome is has the safest, highest floor skill set as a rookie wide receiver coming out in a little bit.
Keenan Allen's saying that he's better than what he was coming out, and I think we're starting
like
to
that.
downgrade.
There's we downgraded the situation there with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore there, but I think it's so good for Rome's development. I think someone that's already wicked pro ready, smart, ready to go, good at everything, good athlete, gets to play alongside two players that he plays similar to. That's that's a dream scenario.
We're gonna have a buy window at Rome Odunze though, where he's gonna have 2 or 3 down weeks to start out the season where Keenan and him go, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go throw in a random.
I plan to own 50 to 60% of market share across 20 leagues. That's
I agree. I'm all in. I don't have many shares right now, but I will. The other trade I want to talk about is how about Drake London for George Pickens in an early second, or would it have to be a first?
It'd have to be a first.
See, George Pickens, I look at as he's one of 3 wide receivers ranked top 20 in drop percentage, who also was top 20 in worst catchable targets. That is the catch. That's obvious room for improvement. Russell Wilson throws a beautiful deep ball, 4th highest deep ball percentage.
If he outproduces London, I wouldn't be shocked. I think if Kirk Cousins just to shit.
If you look at it, I mean, we're talking about catchable percentage. He's going from bottom 20 to someone that is catching the ball when he is such a machine. I think he's like a DeAndre Hopkins light for his career. He's like a guy that doesn't separate by a ton, but uses everything that he has. Only 4 wide receivers have posted that 60+ receptions and 18 yards per route run. It's Moss, Gordon, Chase, and George Pickens. George Pickens with Russell Wilson, I think, is going to be a really, really nice high-end wide receiver 2. If you told me he finished top 10 over Drake London, I would not be surprised because I think George Pickens has that kind of ceiling. The rumor that was holding him down in value was that Brandon Ayuk was going to go there. Brandon Ayuk is not going there. George Pickens is going to out-target Drake London. He's going to have more yards. I think he's going to be, if you can make that trade right now and give up London in a late second for George Pickens in a random first, I'd smash that all day long.
Yeah, I think George Pickens is the guy that's going to potentially take that jump into that next tier because he's a guy that we talked about, 1,100 yards of Kenny Pickett, Mr. Trubisky. That's Garrett Wilson trajectory. That's elite play by a receiver playing with absolute dog crap QB play.
I love that you said that because so you're saying he's jumping up into that Nico, Waddle, Ayuk, Smith, Odunze tier.
He has the talent to do that. He doesn't have the QB play long term though. That's where it gets tricky with him. I think he'll be comfortably ahead of like a Michael Pittman, DJ Moore, and all those guys if he has a really good year this year. 1,200 yards, 9 to 12 touchdowns, and 70 receptions is very realistic for George Pickens, especially with a guy that played with DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton, these 6'4" athletic, big contested catch guys. They both scored double-digit touchdowns with Russell Wilson. I think George Pickens is going to be a guy that gets 10+ touchdowns this year with ease in the Steelers offense. He's competing with me and you, Dad. That's who's running routes alongside George Pickens. It's me and you. He's going to dominate.
I know we talked about, in the bounce back episode, we talked about Hollywood Brown. And Hollywood Brown, we talked about where he literally, in the first couple weeks with Lamar, he was the top 12 wide receiver. First couple weeks with Kyler until those guys got hurt. Now he gets Patrick Mahomes. We know that. We're seeing the camp buzz. We're seeing Xavier Worthy catching bombs. We're seeing Rashee Rice catching bombs. Here's the interesting thing, right? I'm buying all the Chiefs right now. I was buying, I've been buying Rashee Rice all offseason. I was promoting it. Guess what? He's not getting suspended. The trial is not going to be until December. If he gets suspended in December, I doubt that happens. It might happen in 2025. but I doubt we see any suspension for Rashee Rice. His value is only going to continue to increase. Out of these three guys, rank all three. Are you investing in all three? And again, Patrick Mahomes is going to throw for 5,040 this year. 5,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, MVP. Book it. This is your QB1 next year. You know, I think he passes Josh Allen or stays in that same tier. Mahomes all day, but this offense is scary good.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worthy. Rice is a 1A, 1B. That's how I like to look at it. I think they're the guys long term. They're the guys that when Kelsey's gone, it's going to be those two. You got your speedy vertical deep threat, and then you got like your kind of gadgety, like, I don't even know. What the heck is Rashee Rice? Like, what is he? What kind of player is he? He's not an elite route runner. He's not a guy that consistently wins downfield. I struggle with what he is. That's why I just feel like Worthy's just such like a better, safer skill set. He's just as good after the catch. He's just as good in the short areas. He was great in the screen game. I just think they're a 1A, 1B, though. I think Rice can be a way better possessional wide receiver. He's a bigger, more aggressive jump ball guy, like we saw out of SMU. I think they're the 1A, 1B, and I think Hollywood's just long-term nothing. I don't know what he's going to be after this year, but I think this year Hollywood will be like he'll be a top 40, top 30 guy, top 35 guy.
I think Hollywood Brown finishes as a wide receiver 2 this year, as does Rashee Rice, and I think Worthy is a perfect best ball guy. I think Rashee Rice has become the best value in the dynasty wide receiver position because we had him as a top borderline before the suspension talk, before they drafted Xavier Worthy, he was borderline top 12 in a lot of people's boards, and now he's been going like wide receiver 30. We talk about it every year where it's like, if you can invest in that risk factor, you 9 times out of 10, if you pay attention and you look at things, especially, you know, look at the lawyer talk from Davenport, or you look at all these things on Twitter, or what we've been telling you, it wasn't going to be much. And if he does get a suspension, it's 4 games, maybe 6 in 2025. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So go buy Rashee Rice, go buy Xavier Worthy. I'm saying go buy Hollywood Brown because Hollywood Brown's only going to cost you a mid-second. And a lot of teams, myself included, we're rebuilding, and we got Hollywood Brown thrown into deals. So if you can throw a second plus a Jacoby Myers, I think you can get, not Jacoby Myers. I'm sorry, the other way around. Throw him a second and someone that gives you a little bit of upside, like the Bucs star receiver Trey Palmer, who's dating Sydney Sweeney. No, but we're like throwing those kind of guys
in that jersey.
I gotta get one. But that's kind of where we're at. I think we see Hollywood Brown kind of bounce back a little bit and kind of give yourself an opportunity where you buy it a second. I think there will be an opportunity this year where you could get maybe not a 25 first, unless it's late, maybe a 26 first, and you can sell Hollywood Brown and make an instant ROI on that. Put yourself into position. A couple other guys that I kind of like in that area. You and I have been talking a lot this offseason about Terry McLaurin. That time is now. His best season, 87, 1,118 yards, 4 touchdowns. Another guy, bottom barrel catchable target rate, 69% the last 3 years. That is 71st out of 109 wide receivers graded. Jaden Daniels, 70+ completion percentage. If Jaden Daniels stays upright, Terry McLaurin has a wide receiver 1 upside. I think he could easily be that guy. I mean, we look at over the last 4 years, 6 wide receivers have been over 1,000 every single year. Adams, Evans, Diggs, Hill, Jefferson, and Terry McLaurin. And he's just had horrible quarterback play, horrible catchable opportunities. I'm going to trust the talent. I think this is a year where Terry McLaurin is only going to cost you the 205 to 206 right now, and he's going to be worth every penny.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Terry's a guy. Diontae Johnson's another guy. Our favorite, Amari Cooper, is a guy that is going to be a guy that gets 15+ points per game every single year until he literally drops on the field and can't play no more. Like Amari Cooper, easy value in Dynasty. I have so many shares of him. He's elite, and Deshaun Watson knows that. He said it the other day. He's going to get peppered with targets.
I love it.
He's a guy that can win you weeks, too, right? Like, he's the guy that drops 40 out of nowhere, and then he's like 15, 20, 5, 30. And then it's like, okay, I won that week.
Yeah.
I won that week because of you.
A couple other guys that I keep getting questions, Dad. They're like, what's going on with Green Bay? What do I do with Green Bay? Because there's a lot of information to unpack. You love Dontavian Wicks. And you look at Jaden Reed, and when they have 3 wide receivers out, he he was playing 90% of the snaps. Dobbs was playing 80 plus. You know, Watson was playing 80 plus. Wicks was playing in that 30%. When they had 2 wide receiver sets, it was, for the most part, Reed was off the field. Reed was only on 5% of the time for 2 wide receiver sets. It was usually Dobbs and Watson, or, you know, Dobbs and Wicks. So I want to look at a couple of things. We definitely got to unpack quite a bit here. We know Christian Watson's rookie year was phenomenal with Aaron Rodgers, 2.25 yards per route run. You know, he was a wide receiver 1 that season, but only 41 receptions, 600 yards, 7 touchdowns. Plus, I think he had 3 rushing touchdowns. Really propped him up. Jordan Reed last year had those 10 touchdowns, multiple rushing touchdowns, kind of factors into that nice area. Dontavian Wicks looked really sharp. Romeo Dobbs is just way too cheap. Like,
him and Wicks. Him and Wicks are the guys to own.
So rank all 4 for Dynasty. Rank all 4 for redraft, because this is the biggest point of contention when you talk about what Chiefs wide receiver and then what Packers wide receiver. Like, who are you investing?
Does it have to be based off market value, or could I just do who I would rather own in Dynasty? Like,
let's talk about it all.
Who I'd rather own in Dynasty? Dontavian Wicks.
The market value is easy. Reed's is 1.
Yep.
And then I think Watson's 2, like over actual market value.
And then Wicks
is 3, and then Dobbs is 4.
Or actually, I think Dobbs is 3. Yeah, Dobbs is 3. Wicks is 4 right now. On like keep trade cut and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I think so. For who I'd want to own in Dynasty, it's Dontavian Wicks, Dontavian Wicks, Dontavian Wicks, and Dontavian Wicks.
You want Dontavian Wicks in?
No, but for who I'd want to own, it's Wicks 1, Reed 2, Dobbs 3, Watson 4. I don't really care for Christian Watson. He's not polished enough to be the Alpha X there. He's more of that like gadgety slot athletic guy, and that's what Jaden Reed's for. I just think Christian Watson's a guy that has no hamstrings. I don't like predicting injuries, but even if you just look at what he is as a talent, I don't think he's that great of a player. I think he's super athletic. He's a decent player. He's a good like number 2 or number 3 to have on a team, but he's not going to be that team's number 1. No way. I refuse to believe it. He doesn't have the polished route tree like Dontavian Wicks does. He doesn't have the ability to make plays consistently in the short areas like Jaden Reed, kind of being that like gadgety Debo type player. I think it's Wicks and Dobbs are the value plays there because they're those Alpha X style guys that can win on the outside. I just think like if you're going to chase upside in a Jordan Love offense, you're going for that X guy because he's the guy that has that 10-plus touchdown upside. And Wicks is the cheapest, so that's why I'm rolling with that. For redraft, though, Jaden Reed 1, Wicks 2. It's so hard with Watson because the over-under him playing like 8 games is like so slim. But I'd probably go with him and then Dobbs.
Right now, Jaden Reed is ADP of 55. Christian Watson is 65. Romeo Dobbs is 108. Dontavian Wicks is 116. So, I mean, I think the thing we got to look at is when Christian Watson was on the field, though, last year, he was getting more reps. You know, like he was getting high-level starter reps and was the guy that was, you know, he had a couple nice weeks last year. And I think he's going to be a perfect best ball guy. I personally, and this is where when I go with ambiguous running back situations, I'm okay because I want to trust my gut because I really trust it on running backs. When it comes to ambiguous wide receiver situations, you know what I do? I trade him. You know, like that's where I'm at. So like right now, if I don't like Romeo Dobbs, then I'm going to trade. He's in the same value window as guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Jahan Dotson, Jalen Polk, or I might tier up and get myself, you know, a guy that I trust in more like an Amari Cooper, a Chris Godwin. I might add a late second to kind of get into there. You look at where Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks, I have them as my 47 and 48 on Dynasty rankings. In that same tier as Adonai Mitchell, Keenan Allen, and Calvin Ridley. You know, and this is where if I have those guys, if I get an opportunity where if Watson pops off, because you know he's going to have a big week early. Like it's going to happen before he blows out his hamstring. So then if I'm a winning team, then I'm going to package. It's going to happen. You know, I'm going to package him in a second for Mike Evans. And if I'm in a spot where I bought him cheap on a rebuilding team, then I'm going to flip him in a second for Jordan Addison, Brian Thomas. You know, like I'm going to do that. Jaden Reed is the one where right now, Jaden Reed holds more value than Jackson Smith and Jigba. It shouldn't be. He has more value than Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, Xavier Worthy. He's not that far off Tank Dell. If I can get to one of those guys, Snoog, this is how you win in Dynasty, right? You don't have to believe. You can invest in a guy and buy him, but you don't have to believe that that's going to be your long-term thing. So, yeah, I got Reed in the late second of rookie drafts. Yeah, I'm really willing to trade him right now for Jackson Smith and Jigba, or Lad McConkey, or T. Higgins, or Zay Flowers, or Tank Dell, or Keon Coleman plus, or, you know, like there's just endless possibilities. Give me Diontae Johnson plus, you know, like get yourself into a scenario where we don't know the scenario, so buy the cheapest one or trade out.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is always stay fluid in the market process and the market value. Always move back and get more. When you're stuck in that pocket of value at the wide receiver position, move back, and then move back again. Like you could go from Jaden Reed to JSN to Amari Cooper to DeAndre Hopkins to Dontavian Wicks and get like 2 seconds on top, 3 seconds on top. So just keep moving back when you don't really feel comfortable. But I love that range, man. Like you could get like two true anchors, like pair up a CeeDee Lamb with like a Marvin Harrison Jr., or like a Garrett Wilson or an A.J. Brown, and then go get like Amari, Diontae Johnson, and George Pickens. And then you got like a kick-ass wide receiver room. So
I got an interesting question sent in here from Zach. He said, how do you rank the number 2 wide receivers on teams? So we look at, with Tyler Boyd leaving, he says T. Higgins is his favorite wide receiver 2 on any team. For 2024, I mean, you're looking at, you got Jalen Waddle, you got Tank Dell, Devonta Smith, Deebo Samuel, you know, Keenan Allen. Who else do we have in those kind of aims? I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
DK Metcalf.
He's the number 1. No, but I mean, like, who is your, if you have to invest in, who are your top 3 for 2024 producing as the wide receiver 2 on their own team?
Waddle, Smith, and whichever Texans wide receiver you consider wide receiver 2, or Deebo,
and I think
Higgins.
I have Higgins as my 4 there, you know, and I think Deebo would be more in that 5 area.
Higgins could be the 1. Like if Higgins hits his true ceiling, he could be the best performing number 2. Like,
and him and Ayuk right now are low key buys for me in Dynasty because they're going to be free agents next year. You know, like they're either going to stay in a situation that is fantastic, or they're going to go somewhere and be the number 1. You know, man, Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins to Buffalo. Let's just make it happen. You know,
Chargers,
what I mean? Like,
New England.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities. There are complete wide receiver void teams in the NFL. You know, there are teams that are just trying to piece it together, where the Bills are going to roll with Kincaid and Coleman, and then they have Shakir and you know, Curtis Samuel. You know, like there are teams that are just, they're void of that wide receiver position. They're going to pay these guys. They are going to go somewhere, and ultimately at 27 years old, going to get another value bump. You know, like they're in that area where Diontae Johnson left and got a value bump at 27 years old. They're going to get that same kind of treatment there, and I love buying in on those guys. Who are some other guys that you think, Snoog, that this year, you mentioned Diontae Johnson, who's another guy that has a career year where you're like, all right, this guy had, just like Christian Kirk, not last year, but 2 years ago, had that career year where you're like, you bought him. I was buying him all off season instead of, you know, Calvin Ridley. He popped off. Then it was like, all right, you had some value there with Christian Kirk. Who's that guy right now that you're like, this value just doesn't make sense, and you're going to be able to flip him?
I really like Stephon Diggs' value. Wide receiver 43. Noah Brown, Tank Dell, Nico Collins all paced 1,000 yards last year. Stephon Diggs and Noah Brown aren't the same person. I can promise you that. There's a chance Diggs leads this team in yards. It's probably not going to happen. It's probably going to be Nico. But I think there's a chance Diggs does meet that, and he's in that wide receiver 40s range. Amari Cooper, another guy in that wide receiver 40s range, just an elite talent. Still 22 years old. Yeah,
Diggs can leave next
exactly.
year. Yeah, so that's what you want, is you want a guy that, you know, gets you into that area. A lot of, I'm gonna mention some other guys that you just say smash or pass for 2024. You know, because there's a lot of people that this is like your do or die situation sometimes on guys like
smash DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver
Jameson
65.
Williams
Pass.
at 53.
Pass.
Jahan Dotson at 52.
Pass.
Jalen Polk at 50.
Smash. I think he's a little, he's like properly valued.
Yeah.
I'd rather Javon Baker at like wide receiver 80 though.
Oh yeah, he's way down there.
That's crazy.
Jacoby Myers is one that has been interesting.
Pass for me.
Yeah.
No upside with these guys. You're just chasing flex play with these guys.
100%. So I mean, like the wide receivers this year, I'm really excited. I think we're at a golden spot. Oh, he's super cheap, super cheap. But even him and Calvin Ridley are both you can get for a second. I think we're in this golden age right here of wide receivers. I have 17 guys that I would not be upset with as my wide receiver one. Like 17.
Yeah, it's the best I've ever seen it. It's easily the best I've ever seen it.
And then you look 18 to 31 are all.
It's gonna die a little bit though.
It is
you
because
got Amari,
Adams,
Hopkins,
yeah.
Adams, Diggs, Tyreek, Keenan Allen, Cup. All those guys are like 2 to 3 years from being just nothing.
Yeah,
like it's time to hang it up.
We're getting to that area where it's time to start flipping those guys out of that next group of those guys that are going in the second round. Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette, Ricky Purcell, Troy Franklin, Jalen Polk, Adonai Mitchell. Are any of these guys that you're investing in that you think make the next tier jump where they're worth over a 20? They're worth a 25 first.
Yeah, I think betting on Pearsall is a pretty good bet. Although I think he's a red shirt year one. I don't think he's going to do much this year. You look at Ayuk and you look at Debo in their rookie seasons. They weren't too crazy, and those were both, first and second round picks. I think Legette's a good upside play. I think Adonai Mitchell doesn't really have any upside in the Colts offense with Anthony Richardson throwing him the football.
Man, if he went to Dallas, that's what I wanted, man.
He's a good player, man. I'm pissed about the landing spot for him. I think Polk's a guy to make bets on. Javon Baker's a guy to make bet on. Like, you're chasing for Drake May's number one there, and it's wide open. That's what you want to do. Like, Troy Franklin's a guy to make a decent bet on. Like, draft these guys over, like, the guys like Jermaine Burton and those, like, Roman Wilsons that are, like, the team's 3 or the team's 2. It's like,
you think Wilson, who do you think? It's just Wilson and, what's
Calvin Austin.
No, the dude from Van Jefferson. Roman
Wilson's going to be a good pro. I just don't think there's much upside in fantasy to take him in the second round.
Nothing
but
sexy.
Like in the third round, I like it. But I think, Polk and Baker have the chance to be the team's one. Troy Franklin does. They're good profiles, good analytic profiles, good players in college. They all hit 1,000 yards last year. Those are good players to make bets on. I'm trying to think who else. I really like Wicks, obviously. D-Hop in that 65 range. I'm really just targeting like Amari and Diggs and like those guys a lot. I'm trying to win. Last year, I was like 50-something% of my leagues won out of 20. So I'm trying to like get that number to like 60%. I'm going to do everything I can. I know you can only do so much, and then it comes to a point where it's like, okay, you're just getting into the luck range once you hit fantasy playoffs. But it was harder last year, to be honest, because like I had the pod, I had all the Patreon, I had so much other to focus on rather than just fantasy football like I could during college. Like, I have to work now. Like, everything's different. So
we talk about it all the time, but we can't always draft it that
I tell you to do all this stuff, and then, like, I'm like, shit, I didn't even have time to do it for myself. And then I got to go through and do it, so.
Yeah, and that gets tricky because you start to try to juggle it all. But that's what we're here for, to help you guys win. So, Snoog wants to focus on his team. We're here to help you guys focus on your team. Make sure you guys check us out on YouTube. Make sure you check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/SmashAccept, where you get all of our content, redraft, and dynasty. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process. Running backs are always more